This is episode 7 of The War We're Not Being Told the Full Story About, an economic analysis for Africa and the Caribbean by me, Charmaine Hayden. So in the previous episodes, we've looked at how the global energy system works, how the war is disrupting oil markets, and how countries connected to energy supply chains are suddenly becoming strategically important. But energy crises are not only about markets and geopolitics. They are also about what happens when a country simply runs out of fuel. Because while much of the world is watching the Strait of Hormuz and the global oil markets, something much quieter and potentially much more dangerous for the Caribbean is unfolding in Cuba, the Caribbean's canary in the coal mine. So right now, the island is facing one of the most severe energy shortages in its modern history. And when a country of 11 million people begins running out of electricity, fuel, and medical infrastructure, the consequences do not stay inside its borders. They ripple across an entire region. So in this episode, we need to look closely at what is happening inside Cuba and why the rest of the Caribbean should be paying very close attention. One reason Cuba is so exposed to this kind of crisis is structural, right? The country has spent decades operating outside much of the global financial and energy system because of sanctions and political isolation. That means when energy supply lines break, there are fewer alternative suppliers, fewer financing options, and fewer reserves to fall back on. So in other words, the same geopolitical tensions that shape global energy markets also shape which countries are most vulnerable when those markets are disrupted. Are you following me? I like to think that you're giving me feedback even though you're not, right? Cuba has gone 3 months without receiving a single barrel of foreign crude oil. 8 of 16 thermoelectric plants are offline. Blackouts leave up to 64% of the island without electricity. Bloomberg satellite imagery is showing nighttime lighting in eastern provinces has dropped by 50%. The UN's top official in Cuba warned of acute humanitarian risks. 5 million people live with chronic illnesses requiring continuous medical care. More than 32,000 pregnant women need functioning hospital services. What we've looked at here is not just an energy shortage. It's what happens when a country loses access to the fuel that keeps its entire economy running. Electricity grids begin to fail. Hospitals struggle to operate. Food supply chains slow down. And for an island nation like Cuba, those pressures can build very, very quickly. But the consequences do not stay inside Cuba's borders. Don't get it twisted, right? Caribbean leaders have already warned what a prolonged crisis could affect, and its migration, regional security, and economic stability across the region. What happens in Havana can quickly be felt in Kingston, Port of Spain, and beyond, right? And this is why the global energy system matters so much. Because when supply chains break, whether through sanctions, conflict, or financial pressure, the countries that feel it first are often not the ones firing the missiles. They are the countries that depend on imported energy. Across this series, we are seeing different sides of the same global system. Libya shows how oil resources attract geopolitical competition. Cuba shows what happens when a country loses access to fuel. And Nigeria shows how industrial capacity can turn the same crisis into opportunity. In the next episode, we turn back to Africa because while some countries are struggling with fuel shortages, others may be actually positioned to benefit from this moment. And nowhere is that story clearer than Nigeria, where the Dangote refinery may be changing the economics of energy for the entire region. So join me in episode 8, where we take a closer look at Nigeria and the single most important piece of industrial infrastructure on the African continent right now.